Good morning. It is Thursday, April the 8th, and this is The Drill. And now to the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare, and written by John Lockhart. And the enemy's flame will not kindle upon you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flame scorch you, for I am the Lord your God. Fear not the evil threats of the wicked, for just as the flame consumes the chaff, so will my holy flame burn up their root of rottenness, and their blossom will ascend like dust. Just as the flame of the furnace was unable to harm my servants Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, neither shall the wicked fire bring harm to you, for I will be with you in the midst of the fire. The fire will have no power to harm your body, and not a hair on your head or your garments will be touched by the flame of the enemy. Prayer declaration. I will have no fear of the scorching flames of the wicked, for the Lord my God will protect me from being burned. In the name of Jesus, I will overcome every fire of wickedness sent against my life. The enemy will not be able to burn up my harvest, and in Jesus' name, I quench every torch the enemy would use against my life. Amen. And so today I'm going to be reading from the last superstition. No, it's actually I'm going to read from Russell Kirk's book called The American Cause. And it'll be self-evident as to why I'm reading this particular passages. And then after that, Joe's Disaster on the Border, No Free Campaigns, and the Mission to Mars. All that when I come back. Thank you. And now Russell Kirk's The American Cause, and this is the editor's introduction. America is a great nation, but is it an exceptional nation? Does it have a unique mission in human history? Russell Kirk believed so, and nowhere in his early career did he make the case better than in The American Cause. How this enduring primer on American civilization came about is a story in its own right. The book was not originally Kirk's idea. In 1956, he was approached by his friend and publisher Henry Regnery, who urged him to write an elementary statement of the moral, political, social, and economic principles upon which the United States was founded. The Cold War was heating up, and militant communism was America's mortal enemy. It was crucial that America understand what their country stood for, how it differed from the enemy, and why it was worth defending. Kirk, 37 years old at the time, was at first reluctant to write the primer. He was working on larger projects that had grown out of his magnum opus, The Conservative Mind. Regnery's publication of that book just 3 years early had opened up the intellectual commons to Kirk. He believed his energies could be better channeled into other book projects. He changed his mind, however, once certain disturbing facts came to light. What Kirk learned was that many American troops who had been taken prisoner during the Korean War had been easy targets of communist indoctrination. In fact, the chief of intelligence of the, quote, Chinese People's Volunteer Army, unquote, in North Korea had written a memorandum to his superiors in Beijing in which he fairly gloated, quote, based upon our observations of American soldiers and their officers captured in this war, unquote, this intelligence officer wrote, quote, the following facts are evidence, unquote. Among other things, quote, there is little knowledge or understanding, even among United States university graduates, of American political history and philosophy, of federal, state, and community organizations, of states' rights and civil rights, of safeguards to freedom, and of how these things supposedly operate within their own system, unquote. Americans were justifiably skeptical of the enemy's report, but were later disturbed to find that it contained more than a grain of truth. Investigation of our troops' conduct and morale in prisoner of war camps yield disturbing insights. A number of our soldiers were indeed ignorant of their own cause. Some had, quote, weak loyalties, unquote, to their faith and to their nation. Some had succumbed to communist propaganda in the absence of torture and without serious resistance. How could this have happened? A Senate subcommittee ventured that American institutions as a whole, not just public schools, had failed to inculcate the knowledge and values needed for U.S. citizens to defend their nation adequately. One American officer put the matter bluntly, quote, "This is a commentary on matters and morals, on character and lack of it, on a disease that might well be considered the number one social disease of America. Its prevention and its treatment are essential to the continuing survival of our system," unquote. Kirk, himself a soldier during the Second World War, was also disturbed by these findings. He accepted Regnery's commission and in short order produced a 39,000-word manuscript in 10 chapters. In 1957, Regnery printed 5,000 copies of the book. It sold for $3.50, and a number of copies were purchased by the U.S. government to distribute to armed forces. One reviewer wrote that the book would appeal not just to military men, but to a broad spectrum of Americans if they were not ideologues. If you are not an ideologue, Paul Canary ventured, quote, "You will like this book, which puts hard-hitting words into many of your thoughts and convictions about the gift that is represented by life in the United States," unquote. Regnery went through the initial print run. Within a decade, however, the United States found itself entangled in a new war in Asia. Communism still posed a significant threat to the United States, to be sure, but more serious challenges were arising within the nation. It was the tumultuous 60s, and the stakes seemed higher. Among college students especially, the essential goodness of the American cause came under serious attack. At the same time, there is little evidence that American institutions have become any more successful at instilling the knowledge and values needed for the nation to fight for its principles and promise. Regnery decided to reprint the American Cause in 1966, this time with a foreword by John Dos Passos. Mincing no words, Dos Passos wrote, quote, "It is an appalling thought that the American cause should be more needed today than it was needed the day it was published nearly 10 years ago," unquote. But the nation was confronted by a new outbreak of, quote, "distemper," unquote. Dos Passos hoped that the work would enjoy a wide circulation. He hoped that even student radicals would read the American cause and be inspired by it. Quote, "Intelligent radicals," unquote, after all, should, quote, "find aid and comfort in the principles on which an American republic was founded," unquote. These two early editions of the American cause were met by quite different generation. The book's first readers were members of a generation that in youth had some memory of economic depression, World War, and Cold War. The next wave of readers might as well have been from another planet. So different were the 60s from the 50s. They were members of a generation that in youth caused or experienced profound cultural changes, and they were deeply skeptical of American ideas and institutions, indeed skeptical of America itself. Since the 1966 edition, new generations of college students have grown up among us. Once again, the American cause makes its appearance. And once again, the passage of time reveals the book to be much more than a period piece. It is not just a product of the 50s, for Kirk focused on the principles underlying American civilization rather than on ephemeral policy debates. It seems especially to speak to Americans in the aftermath of September 11th. Citizens are once again discovering their love of country, and there's a keen desire among Americans to understand our heritage as a self-governing people under the rule of law. Despite the interests of the Pentagon in the American cause, it is not a government publication. Despite its friendly reception among conservatives, it is not a party manifesto. To approach the book so narrowly is to do Kirk a great injustice. As Dos Passos put it, the American cause is the attempt of one man of letters to jot down, quote, "to jot down in simple terms a few of the principles upon which American government is based," unquote. It endures because of the clarity with which Kirk saw timeless ideas intersecting American history. And I'm going to go ahead and let it go there. And it's an absolutely fascinating and important book, The American Cause by Russell Kirk. I recommend it, and I think that the reading of that introduction should make it obvious to everyone why that book is recommended and is a must-read. So the rumor is that, from what I heard this morning, is that the people on the border, the kids on the border, that they don't have enough supervisors for these kids. In addition to the fact that they're sleeping in silver, whatever, mylar, they have their mylar blankets or whatever. They don't even have blankets for them. They're not supervised. There's not enough supervisors for them, and they're not getting enough to eat. The way that it was reported was they're not eating throughout the day, which means that they're missing meals. And another way of putting it is that old Joe is starving the kids on the border. That should be our talking point, conservative talking point, because it's long past time for the conservatives to have their own talking points. Remember, the idea here is we're not neutral, and we are and do believe that conservatism is what's best for this country. Excuse me. And again, conservatism is what's best for this country, and our job is to promote conservatism in general. Talking point here is that, again, old Joe is starving the kids on the border. This is a disaster on the border, and I think that's the good talking point here. Disaster on the border. Joe's disaster on the border. Ask your left-wing friends about it. Hey, did you hear about the disaster on the border? Did you hear about how the kids are going hungry? They're going without enough to eat. What is it you're going to do about it? What is it that old Joe is going to do about that? It's his disaster. He started it. If he had followed up and done exactly what Trump had done, finished the wall, which, by the way, there's a rumor that he intends to do exactly that. He's going to keep it quiet. He's not going to brag about it, but that he is going to go ahead and finish the President Trump wall. And if he's going to do that, then there's no reason to vote for him in the first place. Everybody should have gotten together and voted for President Trump. But anyways, the people that voted for Joe are assholes. There's no doubt about that, because look what has happened. Either it's happened due to his negligence or due to his will. He either wanted this to happen, or he was out trying to find out where his shoes are, or too busy trying to practice climbing up the stairs to Air Force One to figure out what is going on the border, or even care about it. It is a nightmare. It is a disaster on the border. It's Joe's disaster, Joe's nightmare, and everybody who voted for him should be ashamed of themselves. Thank you. Here's another thing I've been thinking about but haven't podcast much, and that's the idea that if you want to deal with politicians, another way to do it, particularly ones on the right, it's kind of a dicey game, because if you try to punish the politicians on the right, they may end up getting replaced by somebody on the left. And of course, we don't want that, because the left sucks. And so what do you do instead? What the pundits should be doing right now, the people, the Hugh Hewitts of the world should be doing, is every time you have a politician, or a politician that wants to come on your show, because I'm sure they call up and say, oh, please put me on your show. I've written a book, or I've sponsored a bill, or I just feel like mentally masturbating in public. Then Hugh Hewitt should say to them, fine, if you want to be on my show, you pay for advertising. You can do it as an advertiser, because really that's what these folks are doing. Okay, any person with a little bit of sophistication understands that politicians are always campaigning. They're in campaign mode 24/7, 365. They're always raising funds. They're always campaigning. If they get the opportunity to do some free campaigning, some campaigning at your expense, my expense, Hugh Hewitt's expense, they're going to do it. No. It's a good way to teach some of these punks a lesson. If they're not going to do what they're supposed to do, it's an excellent way to deal with the majority leader, or now the semi-minority, quasi split in half leader, or whatever he calls himself, Mitch McConnell, is to simply tell Mitch, from now on, if you want to treat our president of the United States, President Donald Trump, like that, you want to go out and backstab him, especially when you think it's safe, and be a coward about it. The next time that you want to get some free advertising for yourself, forget it. You're going to pay. The only way that you're going to get on my show is if you want to dig into your war chest come up with the money to pay for the advertising. And then you'll be able to talk on my show. But you think you're going to get some freebies, you're going to come on my show and talk to me and get free advertising, a free jump on your next campaign, you're out of your mind. Thank you. One of the things that I had forgotten about is this Mars rover landing. I'm a critic of this Mars bull, and even landing on the moon, I think, was BS. But because it's all done for prestige, it has nothing to do with anything. There's an object in the asteroid belt called Psyche 16, and it's an asteroid, and it has apparently is either solid iron and nickel, or it has enough iron and nickel on it that it's worth $10,000 quadrillion. Okay, that's where we should be going. That's what we should be doing, is figuring out how to mine Psyche 16. We have a lot of people that whine and complain about what it is we're doing to Mother Earth when we're mining for gold or for silver or for whatever it is. Well, here's a solution to it. We go to Psyche 16, find a way to start mining it, or find a way to bring it back to Earth, whatever. The point is, that's worth doing. It's value. We trade millions of dollars it takes to get there and complete the mission for the 10,000 quadrillion dollars that this object is worth. But anyhow, what is good about Mars is that it reinforces the benevolent universe premise. The left says that the universe is malevolent, unknowable, scary place. The right knows that the universe is knowable, certain, and that therefore we can predict what's going to happen, and we can therefore be successful. The Mars landing is proof of that. It's proof that not only this one, but the other missions that we've sent to Mars, every mission that we've sent to Mars has been proof that this is a knowable, even the failures, because then we correct our mistake and make sure that we get it right the next time. That means that the universe is stable. It operates under laws that we can know, we can understand, we can predict, and therefore we can be successful. So that takes determinism out of the ball game. You can't run around saying, "Oh, I'm a victim. Oh, look at that homeless guy over there, the bum that I want to call a homeless man because I'm trying to sell determinism." Baloney. If we can be successful enough, a human being can be successful enough to send a rocket to Mars, a human being can get off his own dead ass and get a job, get rehabilitated, find a place to live, and live like a regular, normal human being. And that brings me to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. Be honest, be smart, be beautiful, and remember that on the left there are no leaders, there's no change agents, and they're not making a difference. I'm Ron, and that's The Drill.